fresh of a resounding victory to gerrymander congressional maps to help the Democrats, Governor Gavin Newsom of California chose to celebrate it in an unlikely place: Texas. Texas is the same place where the American redistricting map wars began. Against the backdrop of an enormous American flag befitting a national campaign event, Newsom framed the redistricting battle in historic terms. The rally by the California governor, who grinned as shouts of 2028 echoed out from the crowd, was yet another signal of his hope to run for president. In fact, that's a possibility he's been openly acknowledging in the last few days. California voted overwhelmingly in favor of Proposition 50, which would reduce the number of Republican seats in the state. And that could have a huge bearing in next year's midterm elections.
He promised to make us wealthier. We're sicker and poorer. And he fundamentally understands that. Why else would he call Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats? Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America.
But for Gavin Newsom, this was also another chapter in an intensifying rivalry between the governors of America's 2 biggest states. Newsom and Greg Abbott, the Republican governor of Texas, have for years engaged in almost schoolyard bullying and public stunts. Abbott, in fact, sent plane loads of migrants to Los Angeles in 2023. The 2 states have been on a political collision course ever since word leaked back in June that President Donald Trump had urged Texas to help Republicans in the midterm elections by taking the very rare step of redrawing its congressional maps in the middle of the decade. As the Republican plans firmed up, Newsom shot back, saying it would take 2 to tango. He put up Proposition 50 on the ballot this fall to redistrict California's seats, thereby reducing the potential Republican majority in the House. This past week, Newsom's state's voters followed through. They approved this ballot measure to redraw California's congressional district lines and to wipe out as many as 5 Republican seats in the state. Proposition 50 passed with a 2/3 majority. Newsom has been working relentlessly to burnish his image as a fearless combatant against Trump, at a time when the Democratic base is clamoring for a fight. Since Donald Trump's return to the White House 9 months ago, his relationship with California's governor, Newsom, has evolved from wary pragmatism to open political warfare. The 2 men, who have been both a foil to each other in American politics, have clashed repeatedly, whether it's on wildfires, immigration, and federal authority. This has also turned California into a stage for some of the most dramatic federal versus state confrontations in Trump's second term. The renewed rivalry between Trump and Newsom reignited almost immediately after Trump's inauguration in January 2025. Back then, devastating wildfires has swept through Los Angeles as well as other California counties. Newsom appealed for federal disaster aid. He urged unity amid the looming crisis. But within days, Trump accused California of mismanaging its forests and threatened to withhold federal assistance unless the state's water policies are relaxed.
Well, it's very sad because I've been trying to get Gavin Newsom to allow water to come. You'd have tremendous water up there. They send it out to the Pacific because they're trying to protect a tiny little fish, which is in other areas, by the way, called the smelt. And for the sake of the smelt, they have no water. They had no water in the fire hydrants today in Los Angeles. It was a terrible thing. And we're going to get that done. It's going to finally be done. I got it done from the federal side, and he didn't want to sign it, but it's not going to happen again like that.
By June, the feud between Trump and Newsom had escalated sharply as Trump launched mass immigration raids across Southern California, deploying over 2,000 National Guard troops and several hundred Marines to Los Angeles. Newsom condemned the action as authoritarian and an overreach by the White House, and he refused to cooperate. Trump, in turn, then accused the governor of harboring chaos and publicly suggested that Newsom could be arrested for defying federal orders. California then sued the federal government days later in a famous case now, Newsom versus Trump, arguing that the president had unlawfully authorized the state's National Guard. The courts weighed in favor of California, saying that the president did not have the authority to send National Guard troops into Los Angeles. But beyond his splashy and almost trolling moves like the event on Saturday in Houston, Gavin Newsom has been taking a more traditional step towards a potential presidential run in 2028. Next year, he will release his memoir, Young Man in a Hurry, a memoir of discovery. It's a title that speaks to his ambition to run for the highest office in the land. And to gin up sales of his book, his campaign has sent out fundraising emails the very next day after the California ballot measure passed. Gavin Newsom, who has positioned himself as one of the president's most visible Democratic antagonists, has also said last week that he will consider running for president after the 2026 midterm elections. Newsom is currently serving his second term as governor. That ends in January of 2027, and he's not eligible for re-election. He has acted as a provocateur against Trump and his policies of political maneuvering, pushing back against the presence of federal troops in Los Angeles, and leading the effort to redraw the state's congressional maps to counter Republican efforts in Texas, and also mocking the social media style of the president. 2028 could very well be defined as Newsom versus Trump, even if Trump cannot legally run for a third term and is not on the 2028 ballot.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.